We begin the day with a nation purging itself of human rights and a police force that needs policing itself. Human Rights Watch says Turkey's crackdown following last July's failed coup attempt has become a blank check for torture. In a damning report released today, the group accuses the Turkish government of allowing its emergency decrees to serve as cover for crimes. Now, it documents cases of alleged abuse against political prisoners, ranging from sleep deprivation to beatings to rape, many occurring in police custody. In a moment, I'll speak with a member of Turkey's governing AK party. But first, our interview with a former prisoner mentioned in today's report who says his body is proof of Turkish torture.
Kamil Uluç describes the 17 days he spent in police custody as pure hell. His accusations against the Turkish state are extremely grave. He says he was tortured for days together with other detainees. He says at first he was beaten, then his captors resorted to even more brutal methods.
They dragged us around the room with cords tied to our genitals. My testicles were crushed so badly that I'm still in pain whenever I use the toilet.
This is the police headquarters where Uluç was taken 2 months ago for allegedly supporting the militant Kurdish group, the PKK. He was pressed to give names. The Turkish government regularly refutes torture allegations. But after the failed coup in July, suspected coup plotters with clear signs of mistreatment were shown on television. Turkey has extended its state of emergency. Now, suspects can be detained without charges for 30 days. Human rights activists say torture is being sanctioned.
The reality is that because of the lack of access to detainees, because of the lack of availability of credible medical reports, we can't definitively say how widespread it is. And we are concerned that it may be more widespread. We doubt it is limited to individual cases.
This photo of Eyüp Birinci, a teacher, shows him in happier days. For the last 3 months, he's been in custody in Antalya for allegedly supporting the opposition movement led by Fethullah Gülen, who lives in the U.S. His wife, Azuman, said he'd been hospitalized during interrogations. His room was left unguarded for a moment. I dashed in and asked, "What happened? Why are you here?" He replied, "I had to have part of my small intestine removed. They beat me terribly." Just a few years ago, human rights groups said Turkey had made progress in the struggle to end torture in detention. Now they fear a return to darker times. Kamil Uluç says he can hardly sleep after his ordeal. He is in pain, he adds, but a hospital has refused to issue an official assessment of his condition.
We kept wondering why we had to endure so much torture. I asked the police, is it because we're Kurdish? I don't know to this day.
After 17 days of interrogation and 6 additional weeks in investigative custody, Kamil Uluç was freed by a judge who ruled that the allegations against him could not be substantiated. But the judge said nothing about Uluç's insistence that he was tortured.
Well, I'm joined now by Rümeysa Kalin. She's a member of Turkey's ruling AK party. She joins us now via Skype from the Turkish capital, Ankara. Good evening to you. Thanks for taking the time to be on the day. What is the Turkish government's position on these accusations?
Well, Turkey takes these accusations very seriously. The Minister of Justice has recently explained that he has established a unit within the Ministry of Justice to particularly examine all these claims, and they will be taken very seriously. And Turkey has absolutely zero tolerance for any torture or ill treatment in detention houses and penal institutions. This is a very clear stance of the Turkish government.
Will Turkey change the conditions and the rules of its state of emergency to make sure that these types of incidents, that torture does not occur again?
Well, Turkey is currently in a state of emergency due to events that took place on the night of July 15th, during which over 250 civilians were shot at on streets and the parliament was bombed. And this state of emergency is more than justified, just as other states have declared states of emergency. For example, France after the attacks in Nice have. And
but we can't compare those, Ms. Khalid. We can't compare. Let's talk about the state of emergency as it is in Turkey right now. As it is, someone can be arrested and they can be held in police custody up to 5 days before they see an attorney, and they can be held for up to 30 days before charges are filed against them. I mean, is there any sign in the government that that could be changed to ensure people, guilty or not, receive due process?
Well, regarding these time periods, actually 30 days is a very normal procedure, especially in a state of emergency. For example, in the UK, this time period is 28 days in normal times. In Romania, which is an EU member, this time is 180 days. So each country creates their own systems of security that will best fit their current situation. And in Turkey, there is a great magnitude of people who have been involved in the plotting of the coup and the killing of civilians. So it's only normal that Turkey will take precautions to make sure that the trials are fair and just and in a transparent manner.
But it's not transparent, though, Ms. Khalid. That's the problem, isn't it? I mean, we don't know what happens in particularly those first 5 days when someone is taken into police custody. They may not even be allowed to see an attorney. We don't know what is happening there. I mean, don't you want your police officers, your police forces, don't you want some sort of checks and balances there to make sure that abuse doesn't occur?
Well, the thing is, there are checks and balances in Turkey, and everything is according to a due legal process, and it's under the laws of the Turkish state. So each country has the right to determine their own times regarding this.
I want to ask you about what a 4-star general in the Turkish military, Mr. Dündar, last week. He testified in front of a parliamentary commission that is trying to find out what exactly happened during the failed coup attempt. And he pointed out that he really doesn't know. People really don't know what happened then. When you have someone like a 4-star general who is credited with stopping the coup attempt, when you have someone like that say, we don't know what happened, then isn't it maybe wise to pull back instead of pushing forward with so many emergency decrees?
Now, when there is an operation that was carried out by hundreds, thousands, maybe tens of thousands of people, you can't expect everything to go back to normal by just sitting silently and hoping for things to go the way they should be. Of course, there will be investigations. Of course, there will be anything so that justice can find its place. Obviously, there is misinformation, but at the same time, it's very clear what happened that night. There are many recordings, there are many witness statements, there are people who actually lived that night that tell us exactly what happened.
You have your 4-star general, Ms. Cullen, who's saying that he cannot answer basic questions as to what happened that night, but maybe we'll have another opportunity to talk about that. We appreciate you taking the time to be on The Day tonight. Thank you very much.
Thank you.